Good evening. Welcome to the Olentangy, Olentangy Local Schools Board of Education regular meeting. Can we turn me down?
Yeah,
'Cause I
that,
have a
you were
really
loud
loud
tonight.
voice. I don't want to whisper.
Randy can finally hear.
I know. Thank you, Mr. O'Brien.
Yeah, turn O'Brien's up.
40,000 comedians out of work. It's Thursday, December 7th, 2017. It is 6 p.m. and we're in the Olentangy Administrative Offices Berlin room. We have a revised agenda, so those of you who are here, we're going to be going to executive session first, and we will do our best to keep it extremely brief to get back in here, and then we will finish up with the rest of the regular meeting. So with that, Mrs. Hatfield, if you would take the roll, please.
Mrs. Fiesel,
Here.
Mr. King,
Here.
Mr. O'Brien,
Here.
Mrs. Patrick,
Here.
and Mr. Bartz.
Here, if you would all rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If I could have a motion to approve tonight's agenda, please.
So moved. I'll second.
Any comments?
Mrs. Fiesel,
Yes.
Mrs. Patrick,
Yes.
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien,
Yes.
and Mr. Bartz.
Yes. If I could have a motion, please, to go into executive session to, as pursuant to Revised Code 12122 for the purpose of preparing for, conducting, or reviewing negotiations or bargaining sessions with public employees.
I'll move.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mrs. Fiesel,
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien,
Yes.
Mrs. Patrick,
Yes.
and Mr. Bartz.
Yes, so if you'll pardon us for just a few moments, we're going to step out, and then we will be back and just pick up with item number 5. We're going to go right through here and go to this conference. All right, good evening, welcome back. We are back from executive session. Thank you so much for your patience with us. Hi, Mojo. We have some presentations this evening. Our first presentation is a recognition presentation. Who's leading that recognition here for Mr. Fuller? Is that you, Mr. Rafe?
I think I am.
Would you please
All right. Mrs.
start this, please?
Oh, well, I got Mrs. Fiesel.
Oh, Mrs. Fiesel. So sorry. Okay, reverse. Welcome, everybody back. I do want to say Mr. O'Brien had to leave us because it's his youngest daughter's last daddy-daughter dance, and he didn't want to miss that, so.
Did you put it in the superintendent? Can you get up my PowerPoint?
Pardon our technical difficulties
I know.
here. Mr. Rafe, thank you.
Off my game. Welcome, welcome. There's A-Bear. I see him. Come on up here, A-Bear. Let's go.
We finally get to meet him.
Is it in that PowerPoint, Chris? Did I miss it? I don't think it's in there. All right.
You're just going to have to wing it.
That's all right. Well, I will wing it.
Please.
It's kind of like my old lesson plans. A-Bear, welcome. Congratulations. I'd like to introduce you to A-Bear Fuller, a 9th grade student at Orange High School who came up with the idea to have a book drive as part of an Eagle Scout project. And he, for schools in, one school, right? What was the name of it?
They said.
Say again?
They said it.
And in Houston, and their library was totally destroyed. And prior to A-Bear developing this relationship with them, they had about 12,000 books in their library. They will have, after A-Bear's project, over 18,000 books. Congratulations. Mr. Bartz, you're going to come take a picture with us?
Yeah.
So this is what we do. We take a picture with the board president.
You lucky guy.
Someday you'll look at
Thank
it
you, that was awesome.
and you'll say,
Let's just stand.
who are those guys? Why am I with them?
Look at the two old guys.
Congratulations.
Can I-
That's an awesome job.
Can I ask, Okay, well, how did you find out about the school?
Yeah, the particular school.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to.
Come here, Aber, you guys talk
Yeah.
into the microphone. We're on public, I know, that's all right.
We were looking for Eagle Scout projects for ideas, and this website came up that all the schools down there in Houston, like they had a list of all the things that happened to their school during the flooding, all the damage that happened, and then that's when we found out about them.
Wow. That was a great project.
Yeah, it was pretty much countywide, he was all over the place.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, I saw
I have a
the library.
question for you. So how are you getting the books there?
They're already down there.
They're already down
yeah.
there?
We got a trucking company, Pitt, Ohio, that shipped them down there for free.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great.
Some
Good
of our
job.
schools donated stuff from their libraries and
Over
Yeah.
1,000 or so.
Yeah.
Yep.
Great.
I think the neatest thing about it is that's the type of project that can be replicated in a lot of places, and anytime something, God
Yeah.
forbid, something like this happens. So I think he developed you ought to write it up and you can share it, because it can be replicated.
Great.
All right.
Thank you so
Very
much.
Good job.
Thank you.
Next, we have recognition of longtime service to the district. Mr. Rafe, if you would do the honors, then I'm going to ask Mr. King to say a few words when you have completed your comments.
Come on up here, young man.
Come on, Ralph.
Come on, Ralph.
So
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. For all of you in the audience, this is Mr. Ralph Awe, who in 1996 joined our facilities committee that at the time it was called the Development Committee, and the Development Committee was charged with keeping track of enrollment growth and projections and trying to predict when we would build our next school building, trying to find ways to build buildings efficiently and cost-effective. And Ralph served on and in 1996 we had the Shanahan Middle School Complex, we had Olentangy High School, we had Wyandotte Run Elementary School, and we had Alum Creek Elementary School. That was it. Now we have, obviously, our 4th high school under construction, and 5 middle schools, 15 elementary schools. So in appreciation to Mr. Awe for his service on the Facilities Committee, he's retiring from it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you for all your work.
I appreciate it. It's been a pleasure.
So Mr. King wants to say a few words also?
Certainly, I've had the pleasure professionally and personally knowing Ralph those 21 years when I was a member of the committee, and obviously since then as a member of the board and being the liaison to the committee. And just a tremendous effort. And don't forget, there was also 2 bus barns.
Yes,
yeah.
2 bus compounds, that's true also, yeah.
And when you think about what came out of that committee over those years with your leadership and a great committee, thanks, Ralph. Just a great job.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. It's been a
Also,
pleasure.
when the Development Committee was formed, redistricting fell under the Development Committee.
You want it
And-
back?
Pardon?
Yeah.
No.
So when we were working on, I met Ralph when we were working on opening up, it would have been Arrowhead and Scioto Reserve were at the same time. And we did enrollment projections by driving around and counting basements.
Yeah, we did. We
And
drive
then-
around the school district and
Yeah,
count
and we counted
houses
basements, and
yeah.
that's how we decided what our enrollment projection would be. Ralph came up with like a .7, each house would have like .7 kids or something like that. And that's how we developed our enrollment projections.
We've progressed a little bit since then.
We were 40 off this year out of 20,500. That's pretty good number.
We were, but if you took the absolute value of the difference,
Oh,
it's,
here we
there's room for improvement.
This
A lot of
is
room
why
for
we have
improvement.
engineers drive this process.
Well, and I just want to make sure the community, all you guys in the room, especially you kids, understand the idea of somebody who gave complete selfless service,
Yep.
got nothing out of it other than helping people, and the people that have been on the development committee created this district.
Yep.
Created the buildings our kids go to school in. And I just don't realize, I don't know how, if you love to do the math, think about for the next 75 years, the number of children who are going to be educated in those schools that you guys created.
Yeah.
It's astonishing.
And for you young folks, I still think there is a master's thesis or a doctoral dissertation in there somewhere.
So, thank you again.
Thank you for your service, Ralph. Now, I'd like to welcome Krista Marconi and the Character Education and Service Learning Club. Is it a club or a group?
More like an initiative, I guess.
An
yeah.
initiative, thank you.
Yes.
At Orange Middle. So please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So I'm Kristen Marconi.
And I'm Amanda Hansen.
And about a year and a half ago at Orange Middle, together we started several service learning and character education initiatives.
We thought who better to tell you about what we've been doing than the students themselves, the people who have benefited from the process. So we have 3 students here who've worked really hard on a presentation for you about what we've been doing.
Good evening. Thank you so much for having us here. My name is Kirti.
My name is Abby.
And my name is Ryan. We're all 8th grade students at Olentangy Orange Middle School.
Today we are here to discuss character education and service learning going on at Orange Middle School. One important element of character education is the Trailblazer trait and reward cards.
That look like this.
Teachers created these cards that focus on traits such as empathy, leadership, and unity.
They can hand these cards out to students when they see them exemplifying any of these traits. This allows teachers to recognize more students and have meaningful conversations with them. The 3 of us have created a video that show how empathy, unity, and leadership are important elements of our school.
At Orange, we bring the community into the classroom to make learning meaningful and memorable for students. We believe that in order to facilitate maximum learning for all, it's important to teach character while also teaching content. After all, we are not only educating students, we are shaping young leaders. Once each semester, students who earn multiple cards are rewarded with leadership and service opportunities. The students get a half day for a service field trip or to participate in team building exercises. Since starting the program, students have participated in cleanup projects, leadership building, and even making videos talking about the importance of the traits to show to incoming 6th graders at our school. Most recently, we visited the local VA hospital. While there, we visited with veterans, thanked them for their service, and passed out care packages prepared by our 6th graders. To learn about building empathy, unity, and leadership, we have home-based lessons once each month. Home-based is a time for teachers to get to know a small group of students so that all students have an advocate who knows them. The lessons revolve around one of the 3 traits and allow for character education in a small group setting. This year, our 8th grade hosted its first Trailblazer Trait Impact Conference in August. Each teacher brought in a service organization to speak to the students. They explained what their organization was all about and how we could help. Students listened to several speakers and chose the organization that they wanted to partner with and create a service project for. Over the course of the year, each month, students work with the organization to make a difference in our community. In May, over 300 8th graders will participate in Service Day and go out into the community to continue to make a difference for these organizations. Some of the 16 organizations we are working with include the National Youth Advocate Program, the James Cancer Center, Children's Hunger Alliance, Need a We, Westerville Area Resource Ministry, and the Teen Mental Health Organization.
Ms. Blake, my name's Pranav, and we're part of Student Council. Student Council gives back by donating to Make-A-Wish, donating to the Mom Foundation, and people in need.
Hi, my name is Rhea, and I'm part of Girls Alliance. Girls Alliance is an after-school program that teaches girls about body image, self-esteem, and other important middle school topics.
Diversity Club gives back by promoting greater awareness about our students' backgrounds and making sure that our schools are as welcoming a place as possible.
One of our biggest events of the year is our Veterans Day ceremony. This year, our school raised almost $10,000 for the Orange Township Veterans Memorial, Honor Flight, and Blue Star Mothers of America. In order to prepare for this special day, 8th grade students learn about issues affecting our veterans. On the day of the event, we hosted 180 veterans for the breakfast and celebration this year. Many of them then go into the 8th grade classrooms to share their stories with students. The 7th grade also hears from veterans and local veterans organizations about how they help the veterans in our community. Sixth graders spend the day learning about our real superheroes, writing thank you notes to show their appreciation, and creating care packages. These will be given to our nation's heroes on an upcoming honor flight and also at the VA hospital.
In 7th grade science, we study human effects on ecosystems. Mandy Scott, a zookeeper at the Columbus Zoo, speaks to students about poaching, human effects, and conservation efforts. The students then do a penny war to collect money for the American Association of Zookeepers, the Columbus chapter. All of the money goes to conservation efforts in Africa and Asia.
Sixth grade students participate in service learning with Partners in Conservation, also known as PIG, through the Columbus Zoo. Each year, our students participate in a proactive project such as letter writing or creating educational materials for schools in Rwanda in the DRC, as well as raising funds for PIG.
Each month, our Orange Middle School families volunteer in the community. Over the past year, many students and their families have partaken in these Saturday volunteer opportunities. Students have welcomed veterans from Honor Flight, donated assorted clothing for people in need in Columbus, Ohio through Aurora Ministries, and volunteered their time at the Delaware County Humane Society and Preservation Parks. This month, we will have families helping the Mom Foundation deliver gifts to families throughout Central Ohio.
Each semester we have a mural contest, and this accomplishes multiple goals. The first is to exhibit students' artwork. Another is to convey unity, empathy, and leadership for both our students, staff, and anyone who comes to visit our school. For each contest, we ask students to come up with an art design to match our hallway themes, which are based on our character traits. We also have a hall to honor our military heroes. We currently have 3 murals completed and just started our next mural contest.
Be the change.
Be the change.
Be the change.
Moving forward, our teachers want to continue making service learning and volunteering opportunities at Orange Middle School very important.
We want the students at Orange to continue to make a difference in their communities and have fun while learning at the same time.
Thank you for having us.
Oh, that was a great
I have a
presentation.
question.
That was great.
First of all, are you all planning on doing Interact Club next year and the other service organizations at the high school?
I do.
I'm not sure yet.
Not sure yet? Well, so if you're going to be a National Honor Society, you're going to have volunteer hours. Interact Club, and there's so many things for you to do. There's multiple opportunities.
Yes.
I guess one thing I'd ask, this is super impressive, and thank you for what you're doing. I would love it if you could, if it dawns on you when you're a junior, and you've had a couple of years of high school service projects, is to go back to the 8th grade class and tell them how it's evolved from where you started to what you're going to be doing in high school. Because I think that at Olentangy, our service organizations at all our schools are amazing. So it would be great if you could go back, give them that energy, show that next group of kids how this has been for you. That would be wonderful. So I don't know if there's other questions, comments from the board?
No, I loved it.
Comment,
Mr. King?
No, go ahead.
comments?
Well, that was a very impressive video. Who made the video?
Ryan did most of it.
He did most of it, but we helped here
Wow.
and there.
Yeah.
So
Ryan's my neighbor too, just so.
Yes. Okay, so are you going to go into
I don't know.
videography? I don't even know what.
I have no idea.
Well, you're very talented. You might want to think about that. You're very, very good.
Thank you.
Interesting relationship was just presented to us. We heard about Ralph All and his colleagues with the
Yeah.
development committee creating really wonderful facilities. And you all demonstrated how you and what you do provides personality. And I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good stuff. Thank you so much. Other questions or comments? Thank you again. Appreciate it.
Great job.
All right, so we're going to move on to the board president's report. First of all, I want to, okay, so here's the thing. For those of you who don't want to hang around for the rest of this wonderful meeting, you are free to go. So if you want to go ahead and do that now, we'll take 30 seconds, 45. That way you won't have to sneak out while I'm talking, which is what most people do.
Thanks for coming.
Have a safe holiday season. I'll see you around. great job. Hi, Mr. Saint.
I should have made it while the students were here so they could hear me.
Good to see you, Mike.
How well spoken are those students?
I know.
Very
Buddy,
well
see you, buddy.
spoken. Great job. You're welcome.
I umpired one of Mojo's game last summer and called him out on a third strike. It's amazing he still talks to me. It was a good,
Well, you know.
it was a good call.
It's character building.
There you go.
It's good.
So on Board President report, I'd like to just give a couple of minutes. Recently, the four of us that are here attended the OSBA Ohio Capital Conference at the Greater Columbus Convention Center, which is a 4-day event. Board members and staff inside of schools and vendors who support our schools are there. There are some really tremendous presentations and some things that we've all attended. So I wanted to give the other board members just a couple minutes each maybe to share something that they picked up, and I'll start at this end. So Mrs. Fiesel, do you want to talk about maybe something that you picked up at the conference to share with our group
I
here?
attended one of the legislative sessions, which is always my favorite session to attend, and Senator Peggy Lehner, who chairs the Education Committee in the Senate side, and Representative Cupp, who is named by the Cupp Report, which is my favorite educational report of all time, spoke. And the hot topic of conversation besides school funding was a bill that's currently in the Senate, Senate Bill 216, which would enact a lot of changes when it comes to education, everything from teacher licensure to student testing. And there's an article in the Dispatch today about Senate Bill 216. But Peggy Lehner told us that it's such a big bill, the summary is 17 pages long, that it's going to be broken up into individual sections because there's so many different issues. You know, you can debate teacher licensure for several days and debate student testing for weeks. And so there was a hearing yesterday on the bill, and it got pretty contentious with the state superintendent. But there's nothing that's going to happen on this bill by the end of the year. But it was just, I felt good to hear her say they're going to break it up in little pieces because each piece of that bill merits additional hearings. I don't agree with all of the bill, but there are some changes in there that I think we could all agree on, but it's going to be broken up into bits and pieces. So, you know, what you read in the Dispatch today is a good overview, but there aren't going to be any changes by the end of the year. One of the changes would be to make parents of students who are taking College Credit Plus classes pay for half of the book costs. And that's because the books that are used in the College Credit Plus classes, the districts don't get, and we're having to pay 100% of that now. And so by making the parents chip in 50% for a class that they don't even have to pay for to get college credit, I think is a fair thing. And so we'll see what happens. I don't know if it'll impact College Credit Plus students for the next school year because it may not get implemented in time, but that is one thing that could impact parents' pocketbooks if it goes into effect.
Mrs. Patrick.
Well, I serve as the district's student advocacy liaison, so I attended Quality Profile, which we already participated in, and part of that was, you know, big emphasis on value added. A lot of school districts were hit hard with value added, so, you know, it's important for them to come up with a quality profile so their communities you know, put forth the priorities and see that the district is meeting those. I also attended one, it was put on by Battelle for Kids, and it was called Portrait of a Graduate. It's the best session I've attended in the 3 years that I have attended the Capitol Conference. And basically what it spoke to was 21st century learning. She started it off with like a picture of a schoolroom in the 1800s with a teacher, and everything was wood, including the walls, the desks. Then she shot to one in the 1900s, and the desks got a little bit of metal on them, but basically the classroom pretty much looked the same. And then today, and yes, our furniture is more modern, but the classroom really hasn't changed. And it just brings to attention that everything in our world has changed, but education hasn't necessarily kept up with that change. So again, it was another, you need to look at the community, and they need to tell you what is important for kids coming out of school. They're, what skills they have, where we need to work. But my favorite part of it was that it feels like we're always waiting around for legislation, and their emphasis was do it, and the legislation will follow. And I really hadn't thought about it from that perspective, but it kind of makes sense. Because education knows more than what the lawmakers do. And if we start doing it and practicing it, then I don't know, that doesn't really help us with funding, though. We're spending money but not getting reimbursed.
Right.
But it was very enjoyable.
Mr. King?
Like Julie, I like to focus on seeing what they're talking about for House bills, Senate bills, funding. Always enjoy going to the Alliance's luncheon because they'll always have a state senator and a state representative from the House talk about what they see coming forward, the value that you might get from those presentations. I also like to look and see what seems to be out there in terms of legal issues from a point of view of lawsuits and those sort of things that districts might have to deal with. So, but yeah, for me, it's all about that, the educational funding.
Yeah, I was able to pop in on the funding, and just so we're all clear, there's no real plan to give us more money. That's the Cliff Notes version. And I think, Mr. King, did you sit on the governor's speech?
I watched it on a monitor.
Yeah. So it was, and I saw kind of a part of it, and it was, again, discouraging that he spoke about everything but funding.
But funding.
So he's moving on. We're moving forward. We will continue to advocate on behalf of fair and equitable funding for Olentangy. So with that, my last comment is, this is my last meeting as the board president this year, and I wanted to thank my fellow board members. I'd like to thank the staff and everything for a very good year. It was a quiet year, which is good. So as we are going to transition at the end of the meeting, we're going to be naming a pro tem for the next meeting and getting ready for our planning meeting coming up in January. But I wanted to thank everyone, and I will continue to serve on the board, just in a different chair next year. I believe Mr. Rafe is going to mix up the seats, so it'll all be a surprise next meeting, won't it? So with that, Mr. Rafe, I turn the floor over to you with your superintendent's report, please.
You'll find out who the favorite is by who gets to sit next to me or who the troublemaker is. Based off of who has to sit. So, ready? Gonna do a big reveal to start off.
Big reveal. Oh.
So as you know, we have, every time we've opened a new high school, we've done a contest and asked students to create the official school logo. Now, this is one of many logos that are used throughout the school. Athletic department will have other logos they'll use and trademark, but we do ask our students to submit designs for what is considered the official school logo. So tonight we are going to announce that logo design, and we have our student who created the design in the audience. So Callie, come on, let's do it. There it is.
Oh, that's awesome.
We tricked you, didn't we? Congratulations. Come on up here, Mr. Spinner. Come on, Callie, say hi to the board.
Hi.
See up there on the screen, there's her design. Will be trademarked. Congratulations. Mr. Spinner told Callie that we were going to have all the submission people here, so she did not know she was.
Faked you out.
Yep. So, come on, Mr. Barnes. We'll take a picture.
Well, I want. Yeah. So you're gonna be going to. Are you gonna be going to Berlin? Or are you?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah. So you're gonna be the first class. That is awesome.
Oh my gosh.
Are you going? Are you the first four-year class? Come on, Mr.
Oh, you'll be in the first four-year class.
That's right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Well, we know Mr. Spence.
Yeah.
Wait, I'm going to take.
All right. This is Patrick, isn't it?
Yeah.
All right.
Congratulations.
So Callie, do you want to go into art design or?
Yeah, I'm thinking about going into the digital design when I get older, to work for Disney. So.
Oh, yes.
Congratulations. You want to keep that? All right.
So, Mr. Spinner, is this going to be,
We'll get you a nice one framed.
is this going to be in the school?
Yes.
Oh.
Awesome.
Congratulations.
Yes, we're just full of surprises tonight.
Anybody
All right.
else here under false pretenses? Get that out of the way?
Oh.
Oh, you want, sorry. So I had the pleasure, oh, I'm sorry, let me go back. Go ahead, Dad. Go ahead, Dad, it's all right. You got no.
As if we have not embarrassed her enough.
I
Let's
know.
just keep snapping.
My pleasure.
Mr. Rafe, hold on. Any more pictures? All right. Now, the same offer. You can hang out, or you guys can bug out. It's up to you.
You won't.
It's
We're
your
unoffended.
choice. We should let the artist decide what she wants to do.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm sure.
all right. Thank you again.
Thank
Good
you.
job.
So I had on Tuesday the opportunity to attend a presentation at Liberty Middle School. Liberty Middle School was recognized by the Ohio Department of Education with their Purple Star Award. There are 8 schools in the state who were recognized as Purple Star Award-winning schools for being military-friendly, friendly to military families and children of military families. So Jason Durrell is a guidance counselor there. He's active. He's a Marine reservist, and he has been very instrumental throughout the district about helping us do a good job of supporting our military families. Did a really interesting, the principal, Nicole Crothers, did a really interesting thing when she started the presentation. Asked every child to stand up who has a relative in the military, a parent, and then a grandparent, and everybody in the auditorium, in the gymnasium. So then more people stood up. And then if you had a grandparent in the military, or if you had a friend in the and by the time she got done with it, everybody in the gym was standing. So we really hit the point hard with the kids that they all have people who know people that are defending our rights and freedoms. So it was a great ceremony, and we're honored that Liberty Middle School was one of the 8 schools in the state to earn that designation. Coming up, we do have our parent programs team on Thursday, January 11th is hosting Hidden in Plain Sight, a drug awareness seminar. Again, we're going to continue to do our best to promote these programs. This one is really very powerful and highly useful for all of our parents. So I encourage parents to attend that.
Don't we have a board meeting that night?
Yeah.
Yeah,
We do.
Yes.
The 11th, that's our organizational meeting.
Yeah.
So perhaps, as was not mentioned, we have some other conflicts that we have. I'll send out a note to the rest of the board tomorrow and look at some of these dates. Perhaps we'll have to move that meeting, or maybe up a day or something. We'll have to
we can
see.
move. Yeah, we have to move it up. We have to be before January 15th. So.
Right. So we'll figure that out.
So, a couple other good things here. Holiday happenings. All 3 of the high schools. The concerts are phenomenal. Our directors do such a great job with the students, and they're just high quality events. So you see there Monday, December 11th at OHS, the 14th at LHS, and the 18th at Orange High School. So highly encourage the community to attend these events. We have one discussion item. Mr. Gordon is going to give us an update on our 5-year capital improvement plan. This is a yearly presentation from Jeff. It's disappointing Mr. O'Brien had to leave to go to his personal commitment, so he doesn't have to hear about asphalt.
Oh, it's going to be on there. I heard a preview last night.
So we have a couple of moving parts in the administrative ranks. Madison Ratliff is on the, for employment as an accountant. As you're aware, Kathy McFarland and Justin Soroka have resigned to take positions in the private sector. And then we have administrative certified stipends for 3 people who are replacing, moving into different roles, and then 1 teacher who on special assignment who will be paid a few additional days there at Orange Middle School. So those are a couple of important agenda items. A couple other agenda items, we have an administrative retirement. Mrs. Jody Clark, who is in the audience. Thank you, Jody, for being here. 18 years with the district as driver, trainer, supervisor. She continues to drive when we don't have enough drivers, so she has, she has transported a lot of kids to school over the course of her 18 years here in the district, and 30, how many years total? That's a lot of kids on a school bus. So thank you, Jody, for all that you've done, and we wish you the best in retirement. She's bugging out before she gets to enjoy 24 new buses? 24 new buses, and then we have a big roof replacement at Alum Creek and Souder Ridge Elementary School. So Jeff will talk a little bit about that in his presentation. And then a couple important dates here coming up, winter break, and then our organizational meeting, which may be getting moved. So with that, thank you.
Questions for Mr. Rafe at all? All right. Mrs. Hatfield, Treasurer's Report, please.
Yes, please. On the agenda tonight, we have our October and November meeting minutes for approval, which is a standard procedure to make sure that we have those minutes approved. We have our October financials. We are right on target in our comparative statement. Of course, those financials are in comparison to our October 5-year forecast, and so there's not a lot of surprises or adjustments there. They were included in the 5-year forecast, so that's good. We will continue to present monthly financials as we move throughout the fiscal year. We'll have November financials at our next, at our January 28th meeting, the second meeting. We have approval of appropriations to deal with different fundraisers and new activities in the district. And then we also have donations that we would like to recognize. Thank you, Patrick. We have donations from several of our PTOs and from a couple of individuals as well. Again, as always, we are grateful for all of the donations that our community members donate, not only monetary, but in kind in terms of hours and service. But we would like to recognize these particular donations at this time. Oak Creek Elementary PTO donated 11 IPEVOs. Forgive me if I'm not using the technical jargon to explain that better. Grow With Me wobble chairs and Dell Chromebooks, valuing over $9,500. Heritage PTO donated trips to Heritage for student field trips, valuing over $3,500. Indian Springs PTO donated Chromebooks, valuing just over $5,900. Excuse me. Pam Stoltz donated a French horn to the district, valued at around $600. And Mr. and Mrs. Muffley donated whiteboards and a bottle filling fountain to the academy for over $700. So we'd like to recognize those at this time. Again, extend our gratitude and thank the community for all that you guys do for us and for our students. It's very important, and we appreciate the work. Are there any questions about any of those items?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any general comment public participants for session 1?
No, we do not.
Okay. With that, we're going to go ahead and move to our discussion item. Mr. Gordon, If you would come up and talk and give us an update on the 5-year capital improvement plan, please.
As Mr. Rafe mentioned, this is an update of what we have done annually. The format is similar to what we've always done. I've tried to keep the same format. One change that you'll see on here is I've tried to capture a little bit differently than we've done in the past some of the bond items as well as the PI, permanent improvement items that come from our PI levy. So what you'll see at the top portion is the bond-funded projects. So these are any projects that were included in the bond package exclusive of the high school. We've done many budget reports on Berlin High School, so you get those reports regularly there. And we're trying to capture and report out through the years any of those items that were on there in the bond relating to improvements in the district and in the buildings, including the bus replacement and the bus, additional school buses purchased for growth. Two items of note on the top half there with the roofing is the Scioto Ridge and Alum Creek roof that is in 2018. Originally, what you saw last December, only Alum Creek was scheduled to be replaced this year, and with Scioto Ridge coming next year. We have been concerned about the budget numbers we've been using for those. The budget we set when we started this 5-year process was what we spent with Arrowhead 3 years ago. So as we've gotten closer, I wanted to have a good tight number for this meeting tonight to present the number. So I asked Garland, who is our state term vendor for roofing, to bid out this work for us so we'd have a good idea of the price. And at the time, I asked them to do Scioto Ridge as an alternate with the hope that, with the concerns about the budget, that if we did two, maybe help us with cost. At the time that I contacted them, they shared with me that they were expecting a pretty significant cost increase in materials in January due to the hurricanes and some of the other things we had at the end of the summer and the fall across the country. So it was good timing to go out and bid. The result that we got for that was by bidding both buildings and moving those forward, we were able to get a $20,000 discount off the cost to do two buildings at once, as well as by approving this tonight, moving forward with the purchase order to get the materials on order, we're able to save an additional $10,000 on it. The downside, working with the treasurer's office and speaking with Emily about the money, it's bond money, so the money's there and it's invested, and we balanced out what we could earn in investments over the next year versus the savings we had by doing both buildings, and it was clear that our savings on the cost of the buildings far outpaced the interest we were gaining on that money right now. So we made the decision to go ahead and move this building into this year and get that done. So. The other items of note that have changed is we've not included the technology number previously that comes out of PI. We included that because it was PI, again, trying to capture all those bond and PI numbers for your review. And you'll see down at the bottom, or moving down the list in the PI column, I have in green Alum Creek and Scioto Ridge roof. So we had budgeted $650,000 for those two buildings, and it actually came in, even with the discount, $13,000 over. So that was something that we had to move into the PI. We had a set amount under the bond, couldn't go any further with that, so the balance of that bid was picked up with in the PI. And I also wanted to just reminder, when I'm still on roofs, Garland is a state term vendor for us, so the materials that they provide, we get on state term. They do bid out the installation for us. And the advantage of doing it state term is we get to pick the type of roofs, whether it's, in this case, it's shingle or limited, but the different types when we do the other roofs. But we also get the advantage of a bid on the workmanship. So by having them bid it out and doing it state term, we get a choice in vendors. And we're not working with just a low bid situation. And as we've discussed many times, that's not always the best situation to be in when you're working on your roofs, something that is covering all the assets that we own. So that's why we continue to use state terms. We get the advantage of choosing our type of roof, and we're still getting a bid on the installation through good vendors that come highly recommended. So the next item under there again is roofs, and that's Liberty High School stage roof. As many of you are aware, we've continued to have some problems with that roof and leaking. We've had vendors up there several times, and after evaluating where we're at with it, we're going to replace that roof this summer. So we've put measures in place to get us to that point. We'll replace that roof this summer. The Shanahan Middle School track replacement, that's one of the items that I mentioned in October that we would be carrying forward. The plan had been to bid the tracks and the tennis court moving of the tennis courts at Orange High School together. The companies that do the tennis courts, generally the same ones that do the tracks. So we felt, again, by combining that bid, we would get better pricing on that project. Asphalt and concrete, we also, that's in light blue again, because that's money that's carried forward from last year. And that money, if you remember, I mentioned was to do a bay of swing sets at 4 of our elementaries and the soft surface for handicap accessibility to start kind of transitioning that. We were trying to get that done yet this fall, and the weather did not cooperate as the temperatures, while they stayed up a little bit, they didn't stay quite high enough where we needed them at. But as soon as we can get the string of days in early spring with the temperatures, we'll be okay. The wet ground isn't a concern because it's in the pea gravel and in the asphalt, so we'll be able to get in there. We won't have to wait on dry conditions, just the temperatures to hold for 3 or 4 days above the 50 degrees. Other items of note on here is we've gone through here and we've budgeted numbers now, and we've had the PI. This will be our second year of PI, and this will be, I think, our 4th year of the 5-year planning ahead, 5-year and presenting this. One of the areas that we've really watched kind of lag behind and how we were funding is the interior and exterior finishes. So those are our doors and our gutters and windows on the outsides of the buildings. As Wyandotte Run, Olentangy High School, those buildings have gotten older with the wood windows. We've had a lot of those we've had to replace. We're starting to get doors that aren't closing correctly. They're starting to move within the walls and just, being used for so many years. So with those are starting to increase, and so we've moved funding from asphalt to increase our interior and exterior finishes. The interior finishes are things like carpet. Olentangy High School, we're starting a carpet change out this year. Much of that carpet in that high school is original, and so we're trying to, now that we've got the PI, we're moving forward and funding and starting some of those replacements that we've made that carpet, I think, last about as long as we can and start changing some of that out. So that's where why the interior and exterior finishes have been increased, because we're starting to really move into the buildings and do some of those things as we discussed when we looked at creating the PI several years ago, where our buildings are aging, and these are the things that we talked about at the time that we have to capture. So we'll continue to massage these numbers as we move further along. We start to see, like with the interior and exterior finishes, those things start to go up. So, there's things like HVAC and roofing repair costs. Some of those things will continue to escalate as we go forward as well, that you will see. And to note, the areas in green were the excess on the Scioto Ridge and Arrowhead roof, or Elm Creek roof, and Liberty High School. That was money that we moved out of asphalt into to make those projects happen. And one other thing I did want to notice, as many of you will see, is in 2022, the bond items that we had on our last issue, they extend out to 2021, and those items end. So when you see in 2022 on the bond side, those rows are empty. And so what that does on the PI side is we know that we're going to have to continue to replace buses. If we would skip years on buses, we'd be in a situation where we'd have to buy 25 buses every year to catch up when we did eventually get there. So we've decreased, in this budget plan for now, we've decreased technology and asphalt to cover buses, because the buses, again, will have to move out of bond into the PI. So somewhere we have that number set, what our levy brings in, so we're working within that number, and when we do that, things go up and down. In this case, to keep the buses going, they've moved from bond into PI for now. Are there any questions? Yes?
On the bus garage expansion, which bus garage is being expanded?
Well, that's still to be determined. Really, it's not expansion needed necessarily of the bus garage, it's bus parking.
Oh.
We've looked at a couple options. We haven't settled on any one. We thought we may have to go as early as 2018. We bumped that a year because we're not yet there as far as space for parking of the buses. So I've kept that money that was moved forward and out of asphalt from 2016 for that. Right now, I think where we're going to be is maybe moving some buses just for parking purposes back to Shanahan, and that money would maybe asphalt and is plugging in the heaters on the buses. A lot of that electric, while it's still there, it was abandoned, has been in the ground for prior to them moving for years, and now not been used for a long time. So we'll have to do some upgrades there if we go ahead and make that move. So I've reserved that money, but only spend it if we truly find that we're going to have to add those buses back.
And it's because we have more buses that we need spots for?
Correct. Yeah,
Due to growth?
Yeah, I think we've done a nice job, I think, of over the last several years, making adjustments within the buildings for the drivers and the lounge areas and doing some things there, as well as working with Jody on offices as she's worked, expanded her staff. But unfortunately, we only have so much room for buses. We looked at the property surrounding our other 2 bus garages. Do we have flexibility to do something there? And unfortunately, what we're finding is Berkshire's kind of landlocked with other areas, but at Liberty, that land is being optioned by developers and difficult to get for a school district in that regard. So it seems like right now Shanahan, being centrally located, is probably our best situation as far as just a place to park buses and do that.
I do appreciate that you're paying attention to material and labor costs going up over time, and that you took advantage of the fact that you combined the 2 projects into one, the roofing projects into one, to gain savings. So I appreciate that you're paying attention to that.
Thank you.
I have a question about the Liberty High School stage roof.
Yes.
So is that the only part of Liberty High School that we're having roof issues with? Because that was, what,
2003, the roof is going on 15 years. When that roof was put in, there was a 10-year warranty on it, so we're 5 years out of warranty now.
Okay.
And those roofs get between 15, 20 years. The EPDM at the high school we replaced several years ago, a couple of you, I think, went up there with us on facilities committee. We're able to address the seams and make that last 24 years. That was, that's rare that you can get that. So we really are on some of those buildings heading into that period where we can expect some repairs and some replacements. So while Liberty's a little bit early, it's not terribly off where we have to start really doing some replacements. And those are things that we'll look at as we move into 2022 and beyond, and we start talking about how we continue to fund PI.
Out of curiosity, the metal roofs that we have on our newer elementary schools, what's the warranty on that?
Those are 50-year roofs, expected to last 50 years. You may have to paint them somewhere between 25 and 30. Olentangy High School is now 27 years old, and we painted one area in the back where I think when they'd done some work previously, they had set some material on, so it scraped it and rusted. But other than fading, that's really the only rust that we've had at 27 years. So we're not at the point of doing any major painting with that. But so 27 years, those look good, have faded, but are still lasting. But 50 years is the expected life for the metal roofs.
Perhaps when we do paint that, we can choose a color other than green.
I will tell you, when we painted the back, a small section, I gave it a lot of thought about changing that color because I hated to paint it. And then in a few years, repaint everything a different color and have that just having been painted green. But I thought if we did Olentangy blue on that little section back there, it would just look odd with all the other greens. So I agree with you, and we certainly will look at that when it comes time to paint it. If I had the money and
Runyon must have got a good sale on that when we built that building.
All right, other questions for Jeff? Great, thank you, Jeff.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Hatfield, do we have anyone else that wants to comment in session 2? Okay. Our only board action item tonight, I believe, is to assign a president pro tem to open the organizational meeting at 18 before we elect new president and vice president. Mr. King has volunteered to sit in that chair, so if there's no objections, I would nominate him to take that role. If I could get a second on that.
I will second that.
Are there any comments on Mr. King? You can turn his head if we have.
Germane to this.
Germane to this.
Well,
Yes, only this.
just because you mentioned moving that meeting, the only day I could do it would be January 8th, because the 15th...
On the Tuesday?
That's
Or the
a Monday.
Monday?
Because I have other obligations, and that the 15th is Martin Luther King Day when we're off school. So we may not be able to move that meeting at all. I mean...
Well, if that's the case, then what maybe we'll do is perhaps if it schedules, we could maybe go early.
Because we meet at 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
It's the organizational meeting. We may not have that much to discuss, so we
We may
might be
not,
able
it may be
to
the
make
election,
that.
so maybe.
We've done an
perhaps-
org meeting and a business meeting at the same time, but we don't have to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so all right, so we'll work on that. So maybe what we'll do is.
Wait, why are we changing that date?
That's the
Because
date
you
of
wanted to
that.
go to the drug.
Oh, I do
the,
want to go,
Hidden
but.
in Plain Sight.
But so everyone knows, we do put the PPT presentations on the website for a week, so I will catch it. So don't worry about me.
The Hidden in Plain Sight, I know we're off topic, but the Hidden in Plain Sight is being held where?
At Liberty. Oh,
Maybe we could do our board meeting at Liberty?
That would be
This
fun.
is at Liberty, right? I'm pretty sure it's at Liberty.
Maybe we could do that? All
Where-
I didn't pay attention to my slide.
right, so we'll work
Do you
with,
know where it is? I thought it was Liberty High School, but
so you can look at that. That's okay, that's a sidebar. We do have a motion for Mr. King to be,
Yes.
so if you could call the roll on that, please.
So, Mr. Bartz?
Yes.
Mrs. Patrick?
Yes.
Mrs. Feasel?
yes.
Of course, Mr. King?
Yes. So that passes. So let's maybe consider that, and we'll cut down, and then people that want to be there, we can, all right. So let's think of that maybe as an option, and maybe we can just go ahead and plan it that way.
A field trip.
We love field trips. Mrs. Hatfield, if you'd present treasurer's action items, please.
Yes, please. I'd like to present treasurer action items A through D for approval, please.
Motion, please.
So moved.
I will second.
Any comments? Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Feasel?
Yes.
Mrs. Patrick?
Yes.
Mr. King? And Mr. Bartz?
Yes. Mr. Rafe, if you would present the superintendent action items, please.
Yes, present superintendent action items A through G for approval.
Make it a motion, please.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Any comments? Call the roll, please.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mrs. Patrick?
Yes.
Mrs. Feasel?
Yes.
And Mr. Bartz?
Yes. So with that, we are going to go to adjournment sine die, which means until we meet again, more or less, with a new administrative turn. So with that, do we need a roll? Do we need a motion?
We
on
need a
sine die?
motion
I
to
believe we
adjourn,
do.
and I will make that motion.
I'll second.
Any comments on adjournment?
Happy holidays.
Outstanding, thank you. If you would call the roll, please.
Mrs. Patrick?
Yes.
Mrs. Feasel?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes.
And Mr. Bartz?
Yes, so we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Please be safe going home and have a wonderful holiday season.